Want to remind everyone that this is the 415ers podcast, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network with 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings, Marc Grandy. Go download, rate, and subscribe. 5 stars at the minimum. We don't take any less here. We appreciate that. And then moving towards the actual game itself on Monday night. Like, I understand why a lot of people feel potentially confident against a Los Angeles Rams team that is coming off a Super Bowl, beat the Niners in the conference championship, but in the regular season, Kyle Shanahan has had Sean McVay's number. He seems to be the one coach that you can almost pencil in a win again for Shanahan nearly every single time. But I don't necessarily feel that confident about this game. I don't know about you, Marc, but there's something about the litany of history between these two sides that, at least on paper, the Rams have an advantage. And the storyline, I'm just afraid it's going to flip on the 49ers, and I don't understand why people, at least bettors in Las Vegas, feel like the Niners should be 2 or 2.5 point favorites.
Yeah, what I'm seeing right now, and I guess it depends where you're looking, but here on Thursday evening, I'm seeing Niners minus 1.5. I know it was a little higher than that recently. I think it's gotten a little closer towards the pick'em over the last couple of days, but still, Niners favored. You are at home, and what generally you think home field advantage in the NFL gives you 3 points, so maybe it would be the Rams favored by 1.5 if this game was being played down in SoFi. Who knows? Regardless, they think these teams are pretty close to each other. And if it was on a neutral site, who knows? Maybe it would be a pick 'em. But I'm a little with you. I don't really know what to expect from this game in terms of the victor, because on one hand, as you mentioned, you have the history of the Niners' success against Sean McVay and the Rams. I mean, Kyle Shanahan is 7-3 in the regular season against the Los Angeles Rams, all of those games while Sean McVay was their head coach. So not only has he had success against the Rams in general, but specifically against Sean McVay-led teams. So that's really interesting. But then you just consider kind of the way these two teams are playing right now. And, you know, not to say that the Rams have looked like world beaters through 3 weeks. I mean, they got dominated by the Buffalo Bills in the first game of the NFL season. They picked up a nice win, and then they looked not great against the Cardinals, who have really struggled through 3 weeks. But, I mean, the Rams did not look good in that game against the Cardinals. They couldn't really punch the ball in the end zone often, and the Cardinals were able to move the ball on them, but they were ultimately able to come out with a win. I'm more so just worried about the fact that the Niners looked so bad on Sunday night against Denver. Now you return home another primetime game, and I think it's safe to assume the team will be better on Monday night against the Rams, but is it enough to knock off the world champs who come at you with great players everywhere? I mean, Cooper Kupp, the best receiver in football, you can make that case. Aaron Donald, the best defensive player, maybe the best player in general in football. Jalen Ramsey, one of the best corners in this league as well. And Matthew Stafford, despite the fact that he's going to turn the ball over likely in this game on Monday night, still a very capable quarterback. And they have, good support players all the way around. You add in Bobby Wagner now in the middle of that defense, who Kyle Shanahan said on Thursday just gives them more options. He can play anywhere on the field. He makes them more diverse and more difficult to scheme against. This is a team with as much talent as any in the NFL. And I'm not really sure what to expect in this game because, again, Niners are at home on Monday Night Football, a place they've looked very comfortable in years past with a lot of these same players against a team that they have had a lot of success against recently, but it's just hard to get out of my head, Evan, what we've seen recently from the 49ers, and that does not instill confidence at all, and it kind of makes you scratch your head. Why does Vegas have this Niner team as a favorite? Because I think if you just polled most NFL fans who watch Sunday Night Football against the Broncos, who obviously know what the Rams are, I think they would probably say that the Rams should win this game, which makes me nervous heading into this game on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I do think that the Rams have looked a little shaky. I mean, they haven't run the ball very well, and that's something that the Niners have in large part done a decent job of holding teams to. Their primary pass first offense. I mean, Stafford under center. I think I saw something like as far as their sets are concerned, 80 to 85% are with three wideouts. So they like to spread things out. There's a lot of pre-snap motion. Obviously, the intent is to get the ball to Cooper Kupp, but for all of their weapons and all of their stars, so far, I mean, a 2-1 record is what it is, but I mean, the differential, they've been outscored because of the lopsided L against Buffalo, where they got completely dismantled. They nearly blew a double-digit lead to the Atlanta Falcons. And then even against the Arizona Cardinals, they stormed out to a large lead and then kind of just allowed the Cardinals to play along, and they ended up finishing them off. So as much as the Niners have not been supremely impressive to this point, you could also make the argument that the Los Angeles Rams haven't looked the best either. And so I think there's some assumption that both teams are going to get better. I don't think the Niners could look any worse, especially offensively, than they did against Denver. So they're probably going to be better. Their defense has probably been the best unit in the league. And so I think maybe people are assuming that that's the way this game is going to go. It's going to be a slugfest, and the Niners defense is going to be how they're going to win this game. I think we both kind of talked about it earlier in the week, how the 49ers may need to win in a boring fashion. They may need to run the rock and do it more effectively. And look, I mean, their first 2 weeks, the Niners were, 170, 180 yards on the ground. One of those is because you're kind of forced into it against the Bears, and then Seattle, you just ran it right down their throats. Against Denver, that didn't happen, and we saw the final score. So, to me, if I'm sort of listing the keys in this game for the 49ers, number one, you got to get to Stafford, right? The last 2 games for the Rams, he's only been sacked once. Against the Bills, they got to him 7 times.
Without blitzing.
Without blitzing. And so when Stafford is comfortable in the pocket, he's a proficient, borderline prolific passer, although he hasn't been against the Niners the few times that they faced him, especially last season. Nick Bosa has also had some big nights on Monday Night Football. I believe 3 sacks in his 3 games on primetime on Monday night. He's also got 11 quarterback hits so far this season. That's number 1 in the NFL. Second key to the game, you got to win on third down. I mean, right now, the defense for the Niners is getting teams off the field on third down at a near historic rate. I believe it's like 44%, and the next closest team is in the 30s. So they're doing that better than any team in football right now. Meanwhile, in the last 6 wins, so the last 6 games for the 49ers against the Rams, the 49ers have been better on third down percentage-wise in 5 of those 6 games. The only game that they have not been was in the 2022 regular season finale, and of course, that came down to the wire. Third key to the game is to, as I mentioned off the top, run the rock.
Yeah.
Like, they have had 30-plus carries in 5 of their 6 games against the Rams, including 40-plus in last year's Monday Night Football wire-to-wire victory. They need to put the ball on the ground, even if it's not working early, to create less pressure, less opportunities for Aaron Donald and the rest of that Rams pass rush to get to Jimmy Garoppolo, who's not going to have Trent Williams in this game. They have to run the ball effectively. And so if we're listing keys, it's getting after Stafford, essentially winning in the trenches, winning on third down, and running the football. I think that gets them to a win against the Rams.
Yep, I agree with you on all fronts. Those are all really good keys. And if the Niners even check off, a couple of them, 3 out of 4 of them, I think they'll be successful. If you win those battles more than you lose them, you're probably going to have a good chance to win. Specifically, I really like the point about rushing the ball. You get over 30 rushes in this game, split probably relatively evenly, I would imagine, between Jeff Wilson Jr., Deebo Samuel. Maybe you get Jordan Mason. Maybe you get some Marlon Mack. I mean, I know Kyle Shanahan said both Mason and Mack were available and probably would have seen some carries on Sunday night against Denver if the team were in a position to run the ball more, but they really didn't run it all that often because they just couldn't stay on the field. But if they had longer drives where Jeff Wilson Jr. needed to come out, we likely would have seen more from Jordan Mason and seen the first from Marlon Mack in a Niner uniform. And the other name to keep an eye out for is Tevin Coleman, who is back as a 49er. His condition, sickle cell condition, kept him out of that game in Denver because of the altitude. But Kyle Shanahan said if it wasn't for the altitude, Tevin Coleman likely would have been dressed as well. So who knows which of those guys isn't going to be active, because I'm sure they're not going to, dress for Monday night. But we'll probably see 3 different running backs carry the ball. You add in Deebo Samuel as well. Maybe get an Ayuk end around, a Jimmy Garoppolo sneak. But between those guys, I will think we'll try to see Kyle Shanahan pound the ball on the ground, especially early. But when they do pass the ball, Evan, we talked about this last episode, they need to get the ball to George Kittle. And I know he's going to be needed in the run game to help out, especially with Trent Williams not there and out. But you look at what George Kittle has done specifically against these Los Angeles Rams, he has dominated. You look at his last 4 games against the Rams, he's registered at least 5 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown in his last 4 games against the Rams here at Levi Stadium, including, a 100-yard game in 2020, but in the end zone every single time at home against the Rams. And specifically, you look at George Kittle in his career against the Los Angeles Rams. From 2017 to the present day, since he was drafted, he leads all players across the NFL in catches, yards, and receiving touchdowns against the Los Angeles Rams. In his career, 49 catches, 706 yards, and 5 touchdowns against the Los Angeles Rams. So, George Kittle, he loves playing the Rams. He's going to want the ball early and often against the Rams on Monday Night Football. He likes the spotlight. He wants to lead this team to a win. It's his second game back off injury. He's feeling good. He's back in football shape. He's back in game shape, and he is ready to go. I'm predicting a big game from George Kittle. If you are into the betting market, take his overs. I am confident he's having a good game on Monday night.
And that's where I think we're at. The whole rhyme or reason to this game simply seems to zig where others zag. I mean, we thought Kittle would, at least his first week back, be introduced into the offense in a big way. It didn't happen much against Denver. So hopefully it's a second chance at a first impression in 2022 for George Kittle. I think that's what we're all hoping for here, Mark.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And, I mean, it's not like this is a guy who we're worried about, he's a shell of himself. Like, that's not the worry at all. It's that, coming off of an injury, and the injuries have always been an issue. You'd like to see him get back and start feeling good and see the offense run through him a little bit more, because when you get him going in the passing game, I mean, just so much else opens up through him in the run game as well, and then you can kind of get the defense on their back foot and take advantage of it that way. So George Kittle, I think he's kind of the key that unlocks everything for this 49er team. And if he does not have a good game, specifically catching the ball, I think it might be an issue for the 49ers. The other thing, quickly, that's interesting, what's on the line on Monday night, Evan? History. How about that? The 49ers, currently, the second most wins Monday Night Football history with 50. Right. The Steelers, the only team with more, 51. So you get a win Monday night. Guess what? You tied with the Steelers for the winningest team all time on Monday Night Football. How about that? What more could you want from your Monday night game, Evan?
A win for the Niners. That is what you could want from the Niners on Monday Night Football, because as I've mentioned throughout the podcast, I think you enter, or at least begin to enter, the kind of danger zone area if you don't win this game. Marc doesn't feel that way, but certainly understands that there's less room for error for this team. And with that said, Marc, we did it last week. It did not work out well for either of us.
No, we both got wrong. Although I remember the under.
You had the under. You had the under. You're pretty confident in that, which is why I'm going to be afraid to take anything close to the over in this game.
It is set at what, 42.5 is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I do think it's going to be a 20-17 game. But I am really having a hard time figuring out which team I'm going to take. I absolutely want the Niners to prove me wrong. But Marc, I think the Rams flip the script in this one. I think they take down the Niners at Levi's 20-17.
Honestly, I'm in the same boat as you. Similar score. You said 20-17. I'm going 24-17. I think this game is separated by a touchdown, but it's going to come down to the wire. The team that's trailing there by 7 points is going to have the ball, at the end of the game and a chance to tie it and force overtime. I wasn't really sure which team to go with. I guess since you went with the Rams, hey, I'll pick the 49ers. Why not? We'll get on both sides of this. 24-17, 49ers. But as you can tell, based on how I decided that, I'm not confident either. So 24-17 49ers is what I'll go. The under hits by just a hair.
It's a good cop, bad cop show. I'll be the bad guy, good guy Grandy there on the other side.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll come back. Won't be a Monday pod because the game is on Monday. We'll check back in Tuesday morning and we'll see who was right and who was wrong.
It'll be a Tuesday reaction for the Monday Night Football game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Los Angeles Rams as that wraps up this episode of the 415ers podcast. As always, a reminder to download, rate, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get yours. 5 stars at the minimum, and we would like to keep it that way 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, except for next week when we come to you on Tuesday for the reaction episode. My name is Evan Giddings. Mark, I appreciate you as always, man.
Yep, we'll talk to you guys again on Tuesday.
All right, see you, everyone. Take it easy.